This is New York Cold Cases from 1955 to 1977. Before we get started on these cold cases, please make sure you're following the channel, give the video a like, and you share it out. It not only helps the channel, but more importantly, it helps us spread awareness. Frederick Holmes disappeared from Grahamsville, New York on May 25, 1955. He was 1 year old. He would now be 70. He was 2'6" and weighed 30 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes. If you have any information, call 845-794-7100. Steve Damon disappeared from East Meadow on October 31, 1955. He was 2 years old. He would now be 71. He was 3'2" and weighed 32 pounds. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 516-573-7000. Cornelia Enright disappeared from Rotterdam on April 24, 1969. She was 18 years old. She would now be 73. She was 5'2" and weighed 115 pounds. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 518-382-5200. Denise Shei disappeared from Queens on July 7, 1970. She was 16 years old. She would now be 70. She was 5'3" and weighed 103 pounds. She had brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 1-800-346-3543. Thomas Muse disappeared from Schenectady on August 9, 1971. He was 14 years old. He would now be 67. He was 5'7" and weighed 125 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 518-382-5206. Marianne Wesolowski disappeared from Glensville on August 8, 1971. She was 13 years old. She would now be 65. She was 4'5" and weighed 95 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 518-761-3840. Stephen Shei disappeared from Manhattan on March 13, 1972. He was 20 years old. He would now be 72. He was 5'10" and weighed 158 pounds with brown hair and green eyes. Any information, call 646-610-6914. Alice Pereira disappeared from Staten Island on July 7, 1972. She was 5 years old. She would now be 57. She was 4'2" and weighed 35 pounds with black hair and hazel eyes. Any information, call 646-610-6914. Linda St. Germain disappeared from Schuyler Falls on February 13, 1973. She was 12 years old. She would now be 63. She was 5'1" and weighed 100 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 518-561-3761. Bonita Bakewit disappeared from Narrowsburg on July 27, 1973. She was 15 years old. She would now be 66. She was 4'11" and weighed 90 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Her boyfriend, Mitchell Weiser, also disappeared from Narrowsburg on July 27, 1973. He was 16 years old. He would now be 67. He was 5'7" and weighed 140 pounds. He had brown hair and hazel eyes. Any information on either of them, call 914-794-7100. Cheryl Tingling Hayes disappeared from Wessac on September 24, 1973. She was 17 years old. She would now be 68. She was 5'3" and weighed 140 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 585-398-4100. Valerie Cushia disappeared from Brooklyn on May 4, 1974. She was 20 years old. She would now be 70. She was 5'6" and weighed 120 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. If you have any information, call 646-610-6914. Cecilia Pina disappeared from Manhattan on October 6, 1976. She was 14 years old. She would now be 61. She was 4'9" and weighed 111 pounds. She had black hair and brown eyes. If you have any information, call 646-610-6914. Timothy Guthrie, his sister and mother, all disappeared from Katuna on February 5, 1977. Timothy was 3 years old. He would now be 50. He was 3'4", weighed 30 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. His sister Julie was 6 years old. She would now be 53. She was 4 foot, weighed 55 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. They both were last seen with their mother, Leslie Ann Guthrie. She was 29 years old. She would now be 76. She was 5'4" and weighed 120 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. If you have any information on her or her 2 children, call 914-241-3111. Jeanne Bowman disappeared from Buffalo on February 10, 1977. She was 16 years old. She would now be 63. She was 5'4" and weighed 115 pounds. She had brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 716-851-4511. Audrey Nierenberg disappeared from Staten Island on July 5, 1977. She was 18 years old. She would now be 65. She was 5'4" and weighed 115 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 646-610-6914. Randy Masiuba disappeared from Lackawanna on October 21st, 1977. He was 18 years old. He would now be 65. He was 6'2" and weighed 145 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 716-827-6411. If you'd like for me to go more in depth on any of these cold cases, let me know in the comments.